Why should somebody take part in the national competitions?
We see it as a means to extend your flying learning experience. I mean, we all go through the flying training, and your learning is then basically from whatever you do on a day-to-day sort of bimble by bimble basis. But this is an opportunity to actually extend those basic flying skills in a sort of organised sort of framework, offering challenge, excitement and fun. And we have to emphasise the fun bit, because that's really what keeps us all sort of together and wanting to do it more and more.
Yeah, an outsider's view of the Nationals might be that it's quite a formal event. Well, it isn't really. People can take part in as few or as many of the elements as they wish. And as Rich says, the primary objective, have fun, meet similar people doing similar things. So it's really as informal as most fly-ins. There are certain elements that you have to abide by, certain rules that we apply, but they tend to be mainly safety based. So yes, it's good.
How do the Nationals work?
Well, each year there's a league. We have national events that take place up and down the country. This year I think we have 5 scheduled. Typically we aim for 6, but it depends. We may have a couple of spare dates because you can never rely on the weather. So each round is run as a separate entity, and people are welcome to enter one or all of them. It's entirely optional.
Yeah, and each of the Nationals is building on those basic sort of flying skills. The navigational side, you're challenged in terms of navigational accuracy and planning, your precision flying in terms of your takeoff and your timings. There's some stuff which you wouldn't ordinarily do, and that's like pretending you're a glider sometimes, and we'll put some economy type tasks in there. And yeah, we'll do some soaring, develop skills that you wouldn't think you had. But all in, as Chris mentioned, it's a safe environment, it's a controlled environment, but it's a learning environment and fun.
It's open to all sorts of microlights, so is there some sort of like class or a handicap system to judge people on the competitions?
No, it's entirely open to any aircraft, and the aim of the competition organisers is to try to set up the task so that, irrespective of whether you've got a fast aeroplane, a slow aeroplane, an old one, you can compete on a level playing field. So it's not aircraft type based at all.
We do have a couple of classes. In the UK, we'll split the fixed wing aircraft out from the flex wing aircraft because there are distinct advantages between the two. So we'll, at the end of a competition, we'll make awards to those 2 different classes. When we go international, if that's where you want to go, then there'll be 4 classes, and they'll break it down into the single seat and the 2 seats, the fixed wing and the weight shift. Of course, let's not forget we've got gyros as well. We've introduced gyrocopters into the competition fraternity. That's been driven from the international sort of competing side, and we've taken that forward through to the nationals. We just hope that some gyro folk find it interesting enough to come along.
Okay. What are the typical tasks in each round that you would set people?
There are basic elements that we're going to test, and that's navigation, planning, fuel economy, your understanding of the aircraft's performance, and precision in terms of takeoff and track accuracy and time.
Yeah, and another element is can be photo spotting. So you might be required to fly a particular track, an accurate track, and you're given a sheet of photographs of ground features along that track, and it's an objective to try to spot those photos and mark their location on the map.
Observational skills.
Observational, yeah.
You could take a GPS along on the trip with you?
We can now. I mean, it's not something that's encouraged, but we're not going to discourage it. We've had a review of how we run the competitions in the last couple of years, and one of the views that was presented to us was that with GPS being now so prevalent amongst normal sort of flying, people are less comfortable flying without it. And of course, normally we wouldn't use GPS to aid ourselves, but we have introduced GPS now into our competitions. You can use them. You may get a slight penalty for the use of them. You're not going to lose all your points, but there's got to be some disadvantage from using them, because clearly we're aiming at developing your flying skills without being reliant upon that sort of technology. but you can now use them. Personally, I don't think they're going to be too much of an advantage to you though.
And you would take a logger that you guys hand out to sort of track people on the task?
Yes, part of the scoring depends on downloading the logger trace, which shows exactly where the aircraft has flown, and then the scorer can then analyse that trace quite quickly and calculate a score based on whether you pass through certain obligatory points perhaps, or certain gates, or over certain features. And the logger can also give you information such as a ground speed. You may have an element of the task where you're required to hold a particular ground speed, and the logger can give you that information.
Okay. As I can see today, it's a really social event, and I presume the competitions are not just about competing but having a good time as well. Are they sort of like usually held over a weekend and people stay over?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, they are full weekend events, and we plan to fly on the Saturday and the Sunday, so people would start arriving on a Friday evening at the airfield that's hosting the event and camp overnight and depart on a Sunday afternoon to get back home.
With regard to the internationals, who gets selected from the nationals?
It tends to be, at the present time, those who want to go, provided they are well, I think if they weren't of a reasonable standard, then they probably wouldn't enjoy it, so they probably wouldn't put themselves forward. But I think at the present time, anyone that wants to go probably has got a good opportunity to go.
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to expand the numbers, because clearly if you're representing your country, which is what we are going to be doing, then there ought to be some competitive sort of basis on selection.
Yeah.
And there was a period of time 10 years or so ago where you had to fight for a place in the British team, and it really did mean something to get and earn that place.
Yeah.
As Chris mentions, we've got to a situation whereby if you turn up to the nationals and you're actually pretty reasonable, then you've got a good chance of going out onto the international event. It'd be good to get us back to the point where we had to select people and make a real competition of it. And today's sort of event is to try and bring people into the competition sort of world and actually develop that home-based competition a bit more.
Which brings us on to why you've run this day. You call it the show and tell event. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Well, we've always, well, I say always, for the last few years we've been wondering why our numbers have been decreasing. Yeah. And we've had a number of meetings amongst ourselves to try and determine why it should be. What is it that's presenting a barrier to the 3,500 other microlighters out there from joining the sort of 20 or so of us that regularly do competition? And we've adjusted the rules. Unfortunately, we haven't yet had the season to sort of put those rule changes into practice, because last year was a bit wet and windy. Hopefully this year we'll see those rule changes become effective. But the other thought we had was to actually put on an event whereby we're not competing, but we're actually demonstrating and presenting the types of flying tasks that you might fly in a competition. So we're showing and telling people how to do it, our view, or letting them practice it and see how they do, and hopefully encourage them to then take part in a full-blown national event.
What is it you think puts people off coming down to compete?
Well, I guess probably the first thing is human nature. You don't want to look silly, and no one ever does at a nationals. But that's probably the first thing. So taking away the competitive side for this sort of event sort of removes that thought. But I don't know, people maybe have just the wrong idea of the sort of things we do. Like, for instance, I know there's a perception that it's all about flying to the limits as fast as you can, and it's simply not the case. You know, speed-wise, we tend to fly to speeds chosen by the pilot, speeds he's happy with. You know, if he's got a ground speed leg to fly at a certain speed, it's not as fast as you can go, it's whatever you're comfortable with and you can maintain. And most of the nationals, certainly now, are sort of based on those principles.
And what are we trying to achieve today? We're not doing all of the sort of particular events that you could have at a national, or the tasks, you're just focusing on one too?
Yeah, today's event is really to focus on some of the navigational aspects. It's some of the easier stuff to plan, it's some of the easier stuff to execute. I mean, we could do the precision stuff, but that would mean interfering with today's normal airfield operations, and we don't want to do that. We're guests here today, and we must thank Graham and his airfield and the club here to allowing us for doing this.
Yeah.
And clearly the fuel limited stuff takes a little bit more time to set up and to actually score. So we're concentrating on the bulk of what would be a competition, and that is navigation. It forms the majority of the flying that we're going to do, so that's what we're focusing on today.
But we're aiming to talk through some of the other aspects that we're not going to cover in the practical side, but primarily navigating around, checking timings. It's a beautiful day, people just want to go flying.
So you give people advice before they set off, and you look at all the marks on the map that they've got to identify. They go off in the morning and do a task and then come back for lunch, and then you sort of discuss where they've gone wrong.
Yeah, where they could have done something a little bit different. They'll see the trace, they'll know where they've drifted off track, they can see where their timings have been a bit adrift. So actually having this printed out for them now will give them something to sort of think about.
And it's all about making mistakes, really, and learning from your mistakes. And in this sort of environment, you know, you can make mistakes. It doesn't really matter. But
the mistakes aren't going to cost you points.
That's the way you learn.
Then we do the same thing in the afternoon.
Indeed, we've got another couple of tasks to run, and I'm sure they'll enjoy them.
In addition to this, where else can people sort of get hints and tips about coming on the national comps?
We've got a competition website. Which you can access directly from the BMAA homepage.
Yep.
And on that website there's the entire calendar of events, and there's a whole load of articles which have been written by some of the competitors to aid you sort of through the different types of tasks that we're likely to fly.
Yeah.
And just quickly, what's your history in flying U2?
Well,
Man and boy.
I started weight shift before you needed a license even.
Yeah.
Flew solo weight shift for 5 or 6 years, and then I built an MW5, a 3-axis. Went to the dark side, I'm afraid. That was a single-seater, which I flew in competitions. Then I built a 2-seat MW, an MW6, because my wife Claire wanted to fly with me, and still does. And finally moved on to an Escapade.
Richard?
I started flying when I was in the Air Cadets. I had a gliding cadetship, went solo after a few weekends of gliding. I eventually got myself a flying scholarship and got my pilot's license from that. I was flying heavy aircraft then for a short while. But my uncle had a first generation weight shift Microlight, a dual striker tri-flyer, and I bought that from him for a few quid, and that set me up, and the next weekend I was off flying weight shift Microlights. And since then, that's all I've done. I sold the tri-flyer, bought myself a Peggy Q, and then went on to flying the Chaser. And I've been flying my current aircraft now for over 20 years.
Do you have a history in competitions yourself?
About 22 years now. So 91 is when I did my first competition. Flown with the team pretty much every year, the odd year which I haven't flown personally for personal reasons, but pretty much every year since then.
Successfully?
Pretty reasonably. Yeah.
Richard's done really well, but he won't say so. But he's been European and world champion several times, I think.
Yeah, I've got 3 European golds, 3 world golds, and 6 bronzes and a silver.
Now I'm an also-ran. I've never won anything major, but I really enjoy it, and that's why I keep coming. So you don't have to win to have fun.
That's great stuff. And what's the BMAA's involvement in all of this?
They basically provide us the cover and the authorisation to actually fly the competitions. It's the BMAA's banner that we're sort of carrying, and we're hoping to communicate what the BMAA stands for by travelling around the country, but also travelling internationally.
And they would actually subsidise you or pay for you if you go international?
We do get some funds from member contributions. There's a lot of people out there that actually do support the team, and they'll make private donations. We don't know who they come from, we don't know how much. And there is a little bit of money which is sort of set aside by the BMAA from central funds, and they tend to cover our entry fees into the competitions. All the other costs, the cost of getting to and from, and the cost of living and flying whilst we're at these events, tend to come from our own pockets.
Yeah.
There's been a bit of interest from Group A pilots for this event today.
There has actually. I mean, what we've set up amongst us is a series of talks. A few of us go around talking at different flying clubs, and there's a couple of guys popped up from Popham, who are GA flyers, Cessna 172 flyers, and they were quite intrigued to learn more about what we do in competition, with a view to setting it up for themselves, but also the guys that are here today cutting across to try our types.
Long may it continue.
Hopefully.
If we can bring some people in from GA to microlighting, that's got to be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. And we're having a good day today?
Yeah.
Fantastic so far.
So far, I can see a burger with my name on it.
Keep you no longer. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Cheers.
So Martin, what do you think you're going to get out of today?
I'm looking for a couple of things. One is to learn and improve my navigation and find out about competition skills, but more just to improve myself and set myself a little bit of a goal and something so that I keep learning, and to meet people, really, just to meet similar people, because I've met a few people at my club and my school where I've just learnt to fly, and it'd be just really nice to meet new people as well.
What school are you from?
I'm from Clearprop, which is at Redlands near Swindon.
Okay, so you've just flown down for today?
Flown down for today. I got my licence back from the CAA only Wednesday this week, so this is only my second day of ever flying out on my own, which is just so exciting, really fantastic. So I've just come down. It's ever so close, so for me that's handy, and I've just come.
So the ink is still wet on your licence?
The ink where I signed it is still wet, yeah, absolutely, yeah.
You've done one test today, one of the tasks. How have you found that?
I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was a little bit bumpy because it's such a great day, but that aside, it was fine, and it's just a question of relaxing. I just relax and enjoy the flying, and then try and do the best you can. It's up to me how much I want to do. You know?
You were a bit nervous before you set off on the first task?
Yes, I was nervous. I was nervous before I arrived, actually. I mean, it's a bit like when you sort of go to when you're learning to fly, you're a little bit nervous, but it's made very easy, and it's up to yourself to do it. It's your own call on how far you push yourself, what you do. You can just gently sort of push the bounds in the envelope and improve, but it's your own call.
And what are you flying?
I've got a Pegasus Q, XLQ. It's fab. I love it. Absolutely love it.
You actually bought it from here, didn't you? From Clench Common?
I bought it from a guy here at Clench Common, about a year ago, maybe a little less, so that I could finish and do my solo hours on my own aircraft at Clearprop, which they let you do, and a lot of schools do. So I did that because it gives me a lot more freedom to fly when the instructor's available, but not necessarily the school aircraft, once you've gone solo, that is. So that's a great advantage, and it also means now that when I come to this, I've got a few hours in my own aircraft, so that's familiar to me, which is great.
Yeah. It's pretty cheap flying?
It's very cheap. It's great. I can't get over it. My aircraft was under £3,000. The insurance is next to nothing. The flying hours are just really cheap. That's why I wanted to get into microlighting. It is really cheap. I've wanted to fly for years. I didn't get round to it. Eventually, I thought I am going to get round to it, and I love it being open cockpit. That's so exciting. Mine's a flex wing. Yep. I love it being open cockpit. That's really exciting. But also, it's just so affordable. It really is.
Yeah. You only fly slow, don't you, so you can see the sights?
Yeah, absolutely. Mine flies at 55 to 60 miles an hour, which is plenty. You just on a beautiful day where there's very few clouds in the sky, there's just so much scenery and beautiful countryside to look at, which is great. And it's also a great advantage on some of the exercises that we're doing, because I fly a lot slower and I can see things that maybe some of the guys in the quicker aircraft won't see. So there's pros and cons for both types, but you just get to love your aircraft, and I love mine.
Yeah, and From what you've seen of today, what do you think? You'll be back to do some more comps?
Oh, undoubtedly, yeah. The atmosphere is fantastic. The camaraderie, what you learn is absolutely wonderful. The chance to improve your skills, it doesn't necessarily have to be competition, it's about improving your skills, and if you improve your skills, for me, it makes my flying more fun. So yeah, I'd definitely be back. If not flying, I'd willingly come back and help out. Yeah, it's great fun.
Like a friendly bunch, though.
Really good, really good. I like Chris and Richard are just fantastic in the way they're explaining the tasks and what we're doing. It's very low key. There's no pressure at all. The other flyers are great. I've spoken to a handful, mixed abilities, mixed range of aircraft, but everybody's up for it. Everybody's friendly. I think what makes you feel at ease is everyone's a little bit nervous like I was, but then everyone just gets into it, you know. So yeah, great bunch of people and a lovely place to come to, Clench Common as well. Yeah, fantastic airfield.
Well, good luck this afternoon.
Thank you very much. Thank you.